This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Thanks for being with us today. Our guest needs no introduction. He has been around these parts, Eastern Idaho, your whole life, really.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born here.
Born here, and just a few days ago, he hung it up. Steve Cannon has been a forecaster in Eastern Idaho for 42 years.
42 years.
42 years, 4 decades of reporting the weather. What are you going to do now?
I'm not real sure. I do plan to do a little work with a little increased activity with the Idaho Falls Police Department. There's an organization within the department, civilian volunteers, called the Citizens Watch Patrol. 19 years ago, 6 of us got together and formed that group. I was one of the original 6. And I plan to do a little bit more work with IFPD. It has been an incredibly rewarding experience. Some days, obviously not as much fun as others, but I'd like to do that. Other than that, I haven't really given it much thought. My wife retired last June from 34 years in District 93 in the classroom.
Okay.
And she's found some activities that she likes, and she will probably not let me infringe upon them.
She's going to do her thing.
Yeah, she's going to do her thing, so I'll find something.
So, were you ready? I mean, 42 years in the broadcasting, that's a long time.
I was, it's the kind of thing where younger minds, sharper minds, you have to remember everything now is all digital, computerized, it's online, and I am the international poster child for electronic illiteracy. Without my grandchildren, me and the internet are...
Well, it has changed over the years since when you started. I mean, drastically. And there is something about this market. How many reporters and anchors and other weather people have you seen over your 42 years?
Oh,
I mean,
hundreds. And this is small market television. What are there, 219 markets?
Yeah, something like
DMA markets. The largest, of course, being New York City, with almost a little better than 8 million households. The smallest is Glendive, Montana, with about 9,000 households.
Wow.
And we are, I believe, 161, which means we are not necessarily the bottom of the barrel, but we can see it from here. So people will get out of school and they will come here and get 2 years, 3 years of experience and move on. They don't have the advantage that I had, which, I was born here. My grandfather homesteaded an area north and west of Rexburg in 1878, which is 2 years after Custer found out he was not invincible. And our family's been here ever since.
Did you ever have the goal to try to get to New York or go to a bigger city?
It's funny. My children, bless their hearts, they would come home from time to time and say, Johnny's dad has a new truck. And my truck was a hand-me-down from my father. And the inference was, why can't we have a new truck? And I would ask them, I said, well, how badly do you want one? Oh, real bad. Well, do you want one bad enough to move to such and such a place or such and such a place? Well, no, not really. I said, well, that's what it'll take. Now, let me put that into perspective for you. When was the last time you saw your Grandma Jensen? 2 days ago. Well, when was the last time you saw your Grandma Cannon? 2 days ago. Well, if we go to where I can get a new truck, you will be like your uncle's sons and daughters, and you will see Grandma and Grandpa for 5 days every other year. Are you willing to give that up? Well, no. And I said, well,
yeah.
And we can drive the old truck for a little longer.
And it's one of those businesses where you could move to Chicago, but if the ratings tank in 6 months, you're unemployed, you're out. There's something to be said, though, about you and Carol and Jay and Todd. Do you fear that you guys are the last of the legends in this market? Will there ever be the anchor man, the weathercaster, the forecaster?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because those of us who have roots in small market communities like Idaho Falls and Pocatello, they're few and far between. And the inclination is, like I say, get 2 years of experience and start moving up the ladder. And I don't see any folks who were native to this area sticking around.
Yeah.
I think we're probably the last of the Mohicans. I hope not. but I wouldn't bet the ranch on it.
So you graduated from Idaho Falls High School.
Yes, sir.
Went to BYU.
Eventually.
And you ended up back here.
Yes.
And did you just show up at, was it KID at the time? Still on 17th Street?
Oh, yes. An interesting story. When my wife and I went to Provo to school, along with thousands of other young married couples, she came home one day from a prenatal class in tears, just streaming tears. I said, what is the matter? And apparently there had been a rush of baby births at Utah Valley Hospital. So much so that they had to put mothers in the hallway because there was not room at the inn.
Wow.
And she said, please don't make me have my baby in the hallway. Take me home. So as soon as the semester was over, we came home. My grandparents' house was vacant, which meant that I still had a little coursework to finish up. So I enrolled at ISU to finish up that coursework. And I'm walking down the hall in the broadcast building, the journalism building, and my advisor, come here. He says, how fast can you get to Idaho Falls? And I said, well, that depends on who stops when my thumb's out on I-15. He said, Channel 3 called. They need somebody on the air tonight.
No way.
I said, you could do it. How fast can you get to Idaho Falls? So long story short, my wife was screaming down I-15 in our old 1969 American Motors Ambassador, picked me up. I went up to Channel 3, made the call, said, yeah, come right in. That was a Wednesday.
Had you done TV before?
A little.
But in college?
Yeah, I'd done a little.
Had you done weather? Or were you, was it to do the news? Or
No, this was news.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
this was news. This was a news gig. And I interviewed on Wednesday, about 3 in the afternoon. Saturday afternoon, I'm on the desk in front of the camera doing the weekend news.
Oh, my word. Was it 30 minutes at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. And so I learned quickly, made a few, have a few bruises on the shins and learned from that. And then in August, the chap that had been doing the weather for a long time, and he was a local celebrity par excellence. His name was Albert H. Fogelman Jr.
That's quite a
Al
name.
Fogelman. They called him Weatherman Fogelman.
Okay.
And he got brighter lights, bigger offer at Tucson, Arizona. So they came to me and said, you've had meteorological training, you've had science training, you know what you're talking about. Would you be willing to take over this position? Well, yeah, for a while. And that was August of 1977.
Oh, my word.
Been doing it ever since.
So I read on, I think a Facebook comment said that you used to go to the airport and pick up charts or something?
I did.
Back in the early days, what was that about?
That was the radar depictions. The Flight Service Center at Fanning Field had a facsimile recorder. It was a wet paper facsimile recorder, which meant it used electricity to print out the radar charts. And I would go over, but the real perk was camera operators. The camera operators, when we had live camera operators, would go pick them up. And that was the great thing because they could drive the company car. And they loved that, right up until the time that one of them rolled the company car coming out that sharp turn from Fanning Field onto North Skyline. And then we got our own. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, had a spare. So we plugged in a telephone line and we had our own.
So you'd have to go to the airport or someone would go pick up the data for your forecast?
Yeah.
And then you would go on the air and were you writing it out? How was it in the earlier days?
Well, for those radar depictions, I would actually color those, the different colors, rain, thunder showers, put them on a static board. We'd use a static camera to take those.
Wow.
And to put the weather information on, I had 4 plexiglass covered maps and a big box of multicolored vis-a-vis water-soluble markers.
Oh my gosh.
And I would take the markers and I would draw the temperatures in black and the weather characters like rain, thunderstorms, snowflakes in black, high pressure systems in red, low pressure systems in blue. And at the end of the weathercast, I'd take a wet paper towel and wipe it all off and come back and start over.
Was there such a thing as the 7-day forecast back then?
Oh, yes.
You would still do that?
Oh, yeah. But it was all on just character generator.
And I would imagine that would be the only place someone could get the weather.
It was. And interestingly enough, for years and years and years, the only weather service office for Idaho was in Boise. And to their everlasting credit, they figured Boise ran from Ontario, Oregon to Mountain Home. Everything east of Mountain Home was where the Bedouins had their tents and went from oasis to oasis. So we did an awful lot of our own forecasting back then because there just wasn't the data available. I'd spend an hour a day on the phone getting weather data from around the countryside, and then using what I knew, and we'd compile forecasts, and we'd use Boise's as a model, but knowing full well the difference between Boise and Idaho Falls and Jackson and these places, why. But now there's a Weather Service office in Pocatello. Yeah. So we've.
And you've got your own system. I mean,
absolutely.
You mentioned digital. When did the green screen come into play?
The green screen was always there, but it was blue.
It was blue.
In the early days, it was blue. And I had a sport coat that was the exact same color as the green screen, or the blue screen at that time.
Yeah.
And I would wear it on Halloween, and I would disappear. You've heard of the Washington Irving, the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and the Headless Horseman?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was the horseless headsman.
I bet people loved it.
Oh, they did. It was great. I had folks looking forward to it.
You've covered the weather, but you've covered the Yellowstone fires,
yes.
Right? How was that?
It was like watching an old friend in its death throes. I grew up in Yellowstone. My grandfather had a cabin in Yellowstone, and that was our second home. And to see the smoke billowing up from the places that I knew like the back of my hand, and then to drive through and see the flames just destroying the park. It was tough. It was tough to watch that old friend. But all the scientists kept saying, this is a good thing. Eventually this will be a good thing. But the hue and cry, I mean, they had 5,000 troops up there fighting that fire. And those of us who knew that the only thing that was going to put that out was Mother Nature when it rained or snowed. And on the 6th of September, the fires started in early July. And on the 6th of September, it rained and it snowed and they put them out. But you drive to Yellowstone now and it's beautiful. It's pristine. It's an Eden.
Yeah.
So the scientists were right, but at the time, boy, they put that fire out. Well, guess what? We don't have all the men, all the fire retardant, all the planes to drop it on the planet aren't going to put this thing out.
Sure. What are some other stories you covered that you'll always remember?
Oh, I remember the floods in '97, going down on the west side of the river there by the West Bank. That's what we used to call the hotel. And you could actually watch the water rise. Individual stories. Yeah. There was a young man, I and some of the other news people hosted the Primary Children's Medical Center Miracle Network Telethon for 20 years. And the first telethon that I did, this young man came up and he had a heart condition, could barely walk, barely speak. He was 8 years old, and we did an interview with him. And I said, this is why we donate to primary children. So folks like this young man can have a better chance at success in life. Fast forward 10 years, back on the set for the telethon, we have a special guest. And this young man came running across the studio, threw his arms around me, was unbelievably articulate. And he said, I have just finished high school. I start my new job this week in my new apartment. And 10 years ago, I wouldn't have bet that he was going to see another sunrise.
Wow.
But
wow. And those are the things you never forget. As you mentioned, here you are. And you mentioned the changes. We've talked about digital things changing, and the market has somewhat changed too.
Oh, absolutely.
When I was here 10, 12 years ago, you go to a news conference, Channel 3, Channel 6, Channel 8 would all have a crew. The newspaper, 2 or 3 newspapers might send a crew, ISJ. Obviously, Channel 3 merged with Channel 8. Do you call it a merger?
A joint operating agreement.
Joint operating agreement. And at the time, Channel 3, that historic station on 17th Street, closed in a way. I mean, in that building.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of memories there.
Oh, boy.
Was that difficult for you at the time?
Yes, it was. The transition was difficult, but it has worked out quite well. When you spend X number of years in one place, and then all of a sudden you move to a new place, you become somewhat of the orphan stepchild. For a week, I didn't have any place to sit. But I did the Weathercast. I just didn't have any place to sit down in between. But it has worked out well. And it was tough to leave the old building. There's ghosts in the old building.
Yeah.
There's 2 that I know of.
I remember playing laser tag on a date in the basement in that old building.
Yeah.
Are there still videotapes down there? Any idea?
Hundreds.
Still there.
I think so.
That's history.
It's great history.
Where do you foresee with the world changing and online news, not bashing online news coming around, I mean, where do you foresee television in 10, 15, 20 years?
Television will always have a place. It will always have a place simply because it's real time. You know, you get online and yes, there's real time there. But I think television will always have a place simply because there's boots on the ground, and the boots on the ground are able to relay the story to the people who are interested. Formats will change. Again, a lot of people, we have an entire staff who doesn't know how to drive a standard transmission. And then there's old people like me who, like I say, I'm the international poster child for electronic illiteracy. But I think there will always be a place for television.
You mentioned format changes. It seems like there seems to be cycles where years ago, do in-depth stories, no, cut it down to a minute, and now we seem to be, well, no, people really want in-depth stuff. I'm sure in 42 years in TV, you've kind of seen it all, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. We would start out nothing over a minute, no soundbite over a minute, no soundbite over 30 seconds. And now we had, for example, we had a package on last night that was just over 5 minutes. Wow. And people loved it.
Kept your attention?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was,
Yeah.
interesting story. A man named Charles Kuralt. I don't know if you remember Charlie Kuralt.
On the road?
On the road.
On the road?
Charlie and I got to be good friends. He's a fisherman. He loves to fish. Okay. And he would fly into Idaho Falls and pick up his rental car and drive to Henry's Lake and fish. Wow. And the chap at Henry's Lake would call and say, Charlie's in town. And a couple of us on staff would, I think we got the flu, we need to take the day off. And finally the news director got wise and he'd say, Charlie's in town, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Kuralt did the On the Road series for CBS. And he was in New England. And it was fall in New England. I don't know if you've ever been to New England in the fall.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And his cameraman was a guy named Isidore Blackman. And Izzy said, you know, if you can think of something to say, I can make some really nice pictures. And so he thought of some things to say, and they made some really nice pictures, and they sent it back to Walter Cronkite, the managing editor of CBS Evening News. It was 7 minutes and 21 seconds long, an entire segment of the CBS Evening News, and Uncle Walter ran it in its entirety.
Wow. Wow.
That is the magic of television.
Wow. Wow. When you look at the media industry, we hear a lot about fake news, biases, left, right. What's your view? Is it fair? Is it objective?
There's a Latin phrase that I'm very fond of. It says, quote, hominos tot sentente. And if you translate it to that, what people can understand, it means as many men there are opinions. What may be totally false to you or to me is gospel, you know, granite tablets from Sinai to some people. And I learned very early in my career that there were people who would not watch me if I were doing the last newscast on the last operating television station in the last time frame in the history of the world. There's just people who won't watch. I don't know if they don't like the way I used to part my hair when I had hair, or what. And yet there are the people who say, oh, I watch you all the time. So you're not going to please everybody. And I'm good with that. You know, like the French say, vive la différence. I'm good with that. I don't try to please everybody. I try to do the best I can, every time I can. And like the Buffalo Rancher, let the chips fall where they may.
One of the memories I'll always have is it was the 4th of July, I think 2006 or 7. And you and I were in Rexburg. We had one of Kevin the Farr's cars with us. We had a few other Channel 3ers, Roxia and Danielle Lee. And we're going down the main street. We had water pistols. We were shooting people in the crowd, and people were yelling, Steve! Steve! You have to get that everywhere you go.
Everywhere.
And everybody knows you. I mean, but you're so friendly and personable. That does it ever get old, or is that just how it is?
You know, if people don't watch, I don't eat. It's real simple. If they don't watch, I don't eat. But over the years, there are some people who are good-natured, and I love people. I'm a people person. And they'll start talking to me about the weather, and you can tell the good-natured ones from the ones that are a pain in the posterior.
Would you get some of those?
Oh, do bears walk in the forest? And I can tell pretty quickly, and I'm just ornery enough that when the knotheads come along and start, I can never go anywhere without a quarter in my pocket. And I'll reach in my pocket and I'll get out my quarter if I can get it past the car keys. Anyway, I'll get my quarter and I'll open it up like this and I'll show them the quarter and say, see this? This is all yours. It's my gift to you. And at that point, I have them completely disarmed. And they'll, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And I says, you use this to make one of 2 phone calls. The first phone call is someone you can make is to someone who can solve your problem, because I can't. I am merely the messenger. I just provide the message. You can call somebody who can solve your problem. Second phone call is is called my Rep Butler phone call. It's Rep Butler phone call. He says, yeah, you can call somebody who cares, because frankly, my dear. And after that, I don't have much trouble with them.
I need to do that.
I'll lend you a quarter.
I'm going to steal your idea.
You got it. It's not copyrighted. It's yours.
That's pretty good. I would imagine that that's increased with Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
If you read the comments. Do you get it a lot? Oh, the forecast wasn't right, or any of that stuff, or is it mainly?
Yeah, you do. And some people, again, I don't know if it's experience or just dumb luck, but you can tell the sincere ones from the ones who just want to see their name in print. Mm-hmm. And to the sincere ones, I will say, well, the accuracy of the forecast depends largely on where you're standing. For example, you're complaining about the fact that we said it would be partly cloudy when it rained on your house in Rexburg. Well, the people in Preston had a beautiful, clear, sunshiny day. People in Sun Valley, beautiful day. People in Jackson, beautiful day. So the accuracy of the forecast depends largely upon where you're standing. But to the naysayers and to the knuckleheads,
And this area can have such a diverse weather in one day, in 1 hour.
Yes.
Rat Nelson was saying some favorite Steve-isms, some favorite, what are some of the phrases you're known for, or that you like to use?
I kind of like like Rhett told Scarlett, every now and again a blind squirrel finds an acorn. I like that one. Yeah. You say, boy, you were spot on with that forecast. He says, well, every now and again even a blind squirrel finds an acorn.
Yeah.
I like that one.
What was the other one you said?
It's escaping my mind.
Between fence.
Between you, me, and the garden.
Between you, me, and the garden gate. Yeah, I like that. And I kind of sometimes somebody will give me gas, and I'll pull up my trousers a little bit and say, "What are you doing?" I says, "Well, roll up your trousers. Too late to save your shoes."
Are you going to miss it?
Yes.
What will you miss?
Yes, I will. I will miss the fact that the people I work with are unbelievably dedicated. They are unbelievably dedicated. They will come in when they've got the flu. They will come in when they're sick. They will come in when personal tragedy has struck. Someone that they know is very ill or maybe even passed away, but they recognize that there's people on the other side of that screen who depend on them. I will miss them. I will miss the people that come up in the grocery store or at the restaurant and say, hey, I'd really like to watch your stuff. What's it going to be like tomorrow? And I'll say, well, the chance of rain is pretty good, or it's going to be a beautiful sunny day. I will most assuredly miss that.
Did any of the children follow in your steps with broadcast journalism?
Our oldest son was a camera operator at Channel 3 for many years in high school. Our middle son was a camera operator at Channel 3 for many years. In fact, he parried his talent with using video equipment into a scholarship at Ricks College. He would photograph the football team. He traveled with the football team and took pictures of their practices and their games for the coaches. And then Jeff, our youngest son, worked for many, many years in the TV business.
Yeah. You still going to watch, or you think you're... A lot of people in TV don't watch, which I found.
And you know why? Because I would rather go
do something.
to the dentist without Novocaine
Wow.
than watch myself on television, because
Well-
I see all the foibles.
Yeah.
I see all the, oh, your tie's not straight. Oh, you've got hair sticking out here. And it just drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But you have to, because that's the only way you can correct the mistakes. I will watch. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on things, make sure they're still.
And we'll still see you around with the Citizens Watch.
Oh, absolutely.
See you down at the 4th of July celebrations.
Wouldn't
and
be a bit
things like
surprised.
that. Well, what do you want to be remembered for, Steve?
Oh, my goodness.
Not that you're dying, but
Well, I'm a cancer survivor.
yeah. Hopefully that doesn't return.
No, I've got a clean bill of health from all the professionals that know much more about that than I do. I would like to be remembered, if indeed I am remembered at all, and that's a big if in this business. You know, there was a kid who, just like, and you would know this being in the media, he was in the right place at the right time with the right gear, and he took a picture that won the Pulitzer Prize. And he came back to the newsroom the day after his award was handed out, and he was kind of, you know, and this old curmudgeon of an editor looked at him and said, "Kid, they're wrapping fish with it this morning." So I would like to be remembered as somebody who liked what he did, liked where he did it, and liked who he did it for.
Thank you, Steve Cannon.
My pleasure.
It's good talking with you. Steve is great to talk with, so go up and say hi to him. If he gives you a quarter, there's your hint. There's your sign.
Good part. There's your sign.
Yeah, get out of there. Good luck in retirement. Hopefully we'll, as I mentioned, we'll continue to see him around.
Yep.
And thank you for watching. Have a good week.